My father came home after 5 years missing, but winter followed him inside. My father disappeared when I was 16 years old. He worked as a logger in the deep northern forest, cutting trees far from towns, far from roads, in places where snow could bury a man in minutes. He had done that job for almost 20 years. He knew winter better than anyone I knew. That morning, he kissed my mother on the cheek, ruffled my hair, and said he would be home by Sunday night. A storm rolled in before sunset, the kind of storm that erases tracks, swallows sound, and turns the forest into a white wall. His crew came back without him. They said they heard him shouting once, just once, then nothing. Search teams worked for weeks. Dogs lost his scent near a frozen creek. Helicopters circled the forest until fuel ran low. Nothing was found. No body. No blood. No broken tools. Eventually, they said the words people say when they want closure without truth. He didn't suffer. Winter took my father and life moved on without him. Or so we thought. 5 years later, during the coldest night of January, someone knocked on our door. 3 slow knocks. My mother opened the door before I could stop her. My father stood there. Same face, same beard. Same old green logging jacket he wore the day he vanished. But he looked wrong. He was taller. Not much, but enough that his head nearly brushed the doorframe. His shoulders were too narrow, his arms too long, like someone had stretched him. Snow fell heavily, yet none of it rested on his jacket. "I got lost," he said calmly. My mother collapsed. When I touched him, his skin felt cold inside, not like winter cold, but like a freezer that had been shut for years. He didn't sit down. He didn't take off his boots. He stood in the middle of the living room, eyes unfocused, as if listening to something behind the walls. My mother asked where he had been. "Walking," he said. She asked how he survived. "Learning," he replied. He never ate. He lifted food to his face, smelled it, smiled faintly, and set it back down untouched. That night I heard him whispering outside. Not talking. Answering. The house grew colder every night he stayed. Our heater worked fine, yet our breath fogged inside. Pipes froze. Windows frosted from the inside out. Animals gathered outside the house. Deer stood frozen near the fence. Foxes sat motionless on the snow. Birds lined the roof, silent, facing inward. My father stood among them at night. Sometimes I saw tall shapes behind him in the trees. Thin shadows that moved when he didn't. One night I woke to a sound like bone scraping wood. I followed it into the hallway. My father was crouched unnaturally low, his back bent the wrong way. His shoulders pushed upward as if something underneath was trying to escape. Antlers pressed through his scalp, tearing skin slowly, quietly, like it had happened before. He turned toward me. His smile stretched wider than a human mouth should. "Hunger teaches patience," he said in my father's voice. The next morning I went to the shed. Something inside me already knew. Under old tarps and broken tools I found bones. Human bones, clean, picked carefully. Beside them lay my father's jacket, folded neatly like it had been returned. Behind me snow crunched. The thing wearing my father stood in the doorway. Taller now. Thinner. Ribs pressed visibly against gray skin. Antlers fully grown, cracked and scarred. "I learned him slowly," it said calmly. "Love makes the skin fit longer." I asked where my real father was. It tilted its head. "Inside me," it replied, "for a while." It stepped closer. The smell of rot, pine, and old blood filled the air. "He screamed," it continued, "but hunger screams louder." Its jaw cracked as it opened wider than any mouth should. I burned the house that night. Flames swallowed wood and memory alike. The thing walked out untouched. Snow fell heavier than ever. It watched me from the tree line, antlers scraping the sky, eyes reflecting nothing. I ran. I never went back. Now winter follows me everywhere. Food never fills me. Cold never leaves me. And sometimes when I look in the mirror, I see my father smiling back. The fire kept burning, even after we buried the body. We were 6 college students full of energy, excitement, and that dangerous overconfidence that only youth can carry. The plan was simple. A 5-day winter survival challenge in the northern wilderness. No phones, no GPS, just maps, supplies, and ourselves. We wanted adventure, stories, and bragging rights. Our guide Thomas was older, wiry, with pale eyes that seemed to notice every movement in the shadows. On the drive in, he leaned close to me. "If hunger comes too fast, tell me," he said quietly. "Don't ignore it." We laughed. He didn't. The forest closed in as we drove further. Snow fell heavier. Roads disappeared under white blankets. By evening, we reached the frozen lake where we would camp. We pitched tents, stacked firewood, and lit the first fire. Flames roared higher than expected. Sparks danced like tiny eyes, bright against the darkness. Thomas didn't smile. He fed the fire silently, eyes scanning the tree line. That night, the wind fell completely silent. Not calm. Silence. The fire crackled strangely, almost like it had a heartbeat. Then we heard it, dragging sounds outside. Heavy, deliberate, slow. Mark was gone in an instant. His tent ripped from inside. Tracks led into the forest, then disappeared. We stayed awake, hearts pounding, listening to every crack in the snow. Morning brought fragments of Mark's belongings. Ripped sleeves, torn backpack, a pair of boots crushed under snow. Then we saw the worst. Bite marks. Human. Precise. Clean. Not animal. Panic gripped the group. Thomas remained calm, watching the fire. "The cold listens," he said quietly. "And sometimes, it waits." That night, the creature appeared. Across the frozen lake, tall, thin, gray skin stretched tight over ribs, antlers twisted and broken, head bent unnaturally. It scooped snow into its mouth and screamed, a sound so unnatural it tore through the forest. Thomas whispered, "It's awake." We realized then that this was no ordinary predator. It was intelligent, patient. It studied. Hunger wasn't random. It waited, learned, and tested. We clung to the fire. Hunger made our legs heavy, thought sluggish. Sarah disappeared next, one moment beside me. The next gone. Her scream echoed and died almost immediately. Food vanished. Not stolen, consumed. Bones left behind, small and sharp, perfectly cleaned. The fire roared brighter than normal, shadows slithering and shifting. Sparks flew like angry eyes following us. Across the frozen lake, we saw the shape again. Limbs impossibly long, steps covering impossible distances. Faintly red glowing eyes studied us, learned our fear. We rationed movements, whispered plans, tried to remain calm. Every sound was noted, every misstep punished. Hunger was patient but clever. The forest seemed alive. Branches bent without wind. Snow shifted unnaturally. Shadows moved with intent. The fire flickered but could not drive away the cold and fear. By dawn, only 4 of us remained. Exhausted, terrified, frozen, the creature spoke. Voice soft, cold, yet carrying across snow. Hunger shared becomes hunger eternal. It approached Sarah. She didn't scream, didn't run. Her face changed subtly, thinner, elongated. Eyes darkening, unnaturally large. Corners of her mouth curved wrong. Thomas sank to his knees. "I tried to starve it," he said. "The fire?" "The fire keeps it busy." But the fire flared higher, hotter, shadows stretching like claws. Sarah turned toward me. Too tall, too thin. Smiling wrong. We ran, snow up to our knees, visibility near zero. The creature didn't chase fast. Didn't need to. Hunger waits. Hunger never forgets. Hunger is eternal. Branches snapped under invisible weight. Snow fell in impossible patterns. Every sound carried. Every step followed. We hid in an abandoned shack. The door trembled. Something scratched the wood. A low whispering growl surrounded us. Sarah's voice called out, but wrong, like she was behind it. I realized this was a trap. Hunger feeds on fear, and it was learning to make us afraid in ways we couldn't survive. I ran until my legs froze, lungs burned. Snow blinded me. Searchers found me days later, half frozen, screaming about antlers, gray skin, and a fire that would not die. Authorities recovered only 4 bodies. They claimed that. They were wrong. Because sometimes in winter I see fires burning with no fuel. Sparks hiss, flare, and move like living things. And I hear Sarah laughing inside the flames. Even now I cannot sleep when the wind falls silent. I cannot walk in snow without looking for footprints that are not there. Hunger waits. Patience eternal. The fire is never gone. It waits for the next mistake. The next foolish group who thinks they can survive the cold. I survived. But the fire is still out there waiting. We thought the sound outside was the wind until it whispered my brother's name. My brother Aaron and I had been planning this trip for weeks. 3 days, a small cabin deep in the northern forest, hunting in solitude. No phones, no internet, just snow, trees, and silence. We packed carefully. Guns, ammunition, food, extra clothing, blankets. We had maps, but the locals warned us. At the last gas station, an old man stopped us. "If you hear someone calling you in the woods," he said quietly, "don't answer, even if it's someone you know." Aaron laughed. "Old man stories," he said. I didn't laugh. The road disappeared under snow hours later. The forest closed in, the trees leaning like giant sentinels. By the time we reached the cabin, the sky was dark and heavy. Snow covered the roof, frost lining the windows. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. The wind barely moved. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the cabin walls. We lit a fire, ate cold beans, and tried to talk ourselves into calm. But even then, something outside watched. The second night, the wind stopped. Absolute silence. Not a normal calm, but a total absence of sound. Then came the footsteps, slow, heavy. Outside the cabin, circling. Aaron peeked through the window. Nothing but white snow and dark tree trunks. Then I heard it. My own voice. Clear, calm. Calling his name. "Aaron, I'm stuck out here." I was standing right behind him, silent, frozen. He turned pale. That's you," he whispered. The voice repeated itself, patient, familiar, calm. We locked doors, killed the lights, and huddled together. It circled the cabin all night. Crunching snow, stopping, waiting. By morning, tracks appeared outside. Deep, long, too big for humans. Claws marked tree trunks 10 feet high. Snow fell through the roof, wet and heavy. Something chewed through it. Aaron whispered prayers he didn't know. We tried to follow the tracks. They looped endlessly, always returning to the cabin. It was playing with us, testing us, learning. Night fell. The temperature dropped. Frost formed inside windows. Our breath fogged the air. Shadows moved on their own. The creature appeared briefly. A tall gray shape, antlers broken and cracked, eyes black and hollow. It crouched low, bending unnaturally, then disappeared into the trees. Our food began vanishing. Bones left behind, small and sharp, like it had consumed something carefully. Aaron's hand shook. "It knows us," he said. "It learned our names." The forest felt alive. Trees bent without wind. Snow shifted unnaturally. Shadows moved with intent. The fire flickered, not enough to push away the cold and fear. Just before dawn, the cabin door splintered. It ducked inside. Tall, thin, skin gray, stretched tight over bones, antlers twisted, eyes black and empty, crooked grin. It sniffed the air. "You smell," remembered, it said in our mother's voice. Aaron ran, screamed once, then silence. I froze, heart hammering. Snow fell through broken windows. Wind whispered voices. It leaned close. Cold, rotten breath. "Hunger teaches patience," it whispered. Shadows danced across the cabin walls, moving independently. The fire cast shapes that seemed alive. I realized it wasn't just hunting our bodies. It was feeding on our fear, learning us. I ran, barefoot, frostbitten, screaming my brother's name. They found me days later, miles away, half frozen, shaking, delirious. Aaron was gone. Cabin empty. No blood, no tracks. Just my footprints leading into white nothingness. Now, whenever winter is quiet, I hear voices. My own voice calling from the snow. And somewhere far away, something always answers. The snow remembers.